Jason Yates is a 35-year industry veteran. From behind the chair to marketing to manufacturing, education, and sales, he is now the president of John Paul Mitchell Systems. And today we're going to hear all about his story, how he got to where he is, and what he's seeing into the future and the current state of the industry. Welcome back to the Hairdresser Strong Show. My name is Robert Hughes, and I am your host. And today I'm with Jason Yates. How you doing today, Jason?
I'm doing good, Robert. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. All the viewers and listeners that are tuning in, I met Jason at Beauty Gives Back. Shout out to Maria. Definitely check out Beauty Gives Back. It's an awesome event. I got to hear your story, Jason, and I was running in and out because I was doing like little interviews. What I did hear, I thought it was awesome, and I'm excited to have you on the show to so that our viewers and listeners can hear it and see it for themselves.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me on. I really enjoyed the event itself. It was great to see so many young hairdressers excited about this wonderful industry that's given so much to me. I've been doing this since 1990, 35 years since I started as an apprentice hairdresser in the UK. Feels like a long time, but it's also gone like that. And it's just really, it's been such a fantastic journey. And it really is an incredible industry that we get the pleasure to work in each and every day. And I just love to do anything I can to give back to the industry that's given me so much.
Awesome. Well, we had a pre-conversation, and you kind of already opened us up into it. So I'm gonna jump right in and say, so like you're now the president of John Paul Mitchell Systems, but you also said you were behind the chair. Said that in the opening. Can you tell us like how did that happen? Like how old were you when you got into it? How long did you do it for? And any sort of highlights of that
Yeah,
time?
sure. Sure. Well, first of all, I want to mention that I'm still an active hairdresser. I still have an active license. That's super important to me. I don't want to be the person that says I'm a hairdresser if I'm not a hairdresser. I mean, to me, I take the profession very seriously, and all the success I've had, a lot of it is down to being a hairdresser and understanding hairdressers. And that's why it was super important for me to align with a company that values the professional beauty industry and values hairdressers and has a focus of making hairdressers successful behind the chair. So, yeah, I got started in 1990. I was 15 years old, almost 16. From the UK. So in the UK, we graduate high school usually at 16 years old. But because of my birthday, I was still 15 when we finished the school year. And for me at that time, I never thought about going to college or furthering my education in that respect. I felt I was a creative person. I wanted to do something where I was around people. And I was naturally just drawn to hairdressing. And I had excellent advice from my parents. They said, if you're going to become a hairdresser, let's make sure you get an amazing education. You want to have the best education that you can possibly. So I actually did an apprenticeship, which is pretty typical in the UK. We do have trade schools, but we also do a lot of apprenticeships. And I really enjoyed the apprenticeship route for me. It was very good. It was very hard and very long. We worked basically, you're working in a full-time salon at real pace. The good thing about that is obviously you're learning at a real pace in a real salon scenario. The hard thing about that is, you basically work from when the salon opens to the salon finishes, and then you do your training after the salon finishes. So your days are super long. I don't think I worked harder than those first 3 years it took me to become a hairdresser. So it didn't happen quickly. When I came to the United States many years later and saw that, in 9 months you could become a hairdresser, I was like, wow, I wish my journey had been that quick because mine, it was tough. I actually trained at a group of salons that were local to the area I was in the UK, and they were the premium salon in that area, and they were called John English. They had 22 locations, and I was one of like 40 apprentices who got taken on in that year. And only like 6 apprentices actually made it through the program. It was tough and demanding, but what I liked about it is it really it weaned out the people who kind of just fell into it. It really, you know, you really needed to want to be a hairdresser and love this industry to stay into it. So yeah, it was a very good education I got. I got to learn on the job. I got to see very talented people each and every day. And yeah, I ended up staying at that company until I moved to the US, which was about 12 and a half years. So from age 15 to the age 27, I worked for that group of salons. I started as an apprentice and I worked my way up from becoming a junior stylist, a stylist. I was a salon trainer. I was a salon manager in my early 20s. Then I became an area manager. And by the time I left the company, I was running all the locations. So it was good because I got to see everything A to Z, what it takes to run a salon. So not just being behind the chair, but started learning more about the business and all the challenges businesses face. It was a really good education. At the same time as I was working behind the chair, I also entered a hairdressing competition in 1995. It was a national competition, and I was very blessed. I won the competition, and the prize for winning that competition, it was sponsored by a manufacturer, and the prize was I got to be on their autistic team for a year. So then it exposed me to a whole different scenario of what the beauty industry can do for you. So instead of just being behind the chair working with guests every day, I now got the opportunity to educate on a platform. And again, I got to work with terrific artists, and it really kind of inspired me. And I got to work with some great mentors who led me to believe that there's so much more that I could do in this career. So yeah, I got on stage a little bit. I did a year of doing hair shows, and I was very nervous. I was terrible on the mic, terrible in front of an audience. But you know, like anything, you do it, you work hard, you get better, and that was really an exciting time for me. At the same time that I was doing the hair shows and working in the salon, the company that I work for also started to carry a brand new innovative product, which was coming out of the US at the time. You've got to remember this is a long time ago. This is in the 90s. And I don't know, Robert, if you remember this or if any of your viewers remember this, but there was a product called Sunglitz, which was actually made by Farouk Systems, which was the world's first ammonia-free lightning system that you could do a highlight service in 15, 20 minutes, which in the early 90s, we thought was super innovative. And it was years ahead of its time. And our salons wanted to use it in our salons, but the owner of the company said, well, I'm a startup company. I don't have a distributor in the UK. You're my first customer. You have a warehouse. You have 20 salons. Would you like to be our distributor? So we became the distributor for this fledgling US brand. And the reason that's important is, again, it got me to learn how to do other aspects. So instead of now just working behind the chair and doing platform work, now I had to, you know, create marketing campaigns for products. I had to be the salesperson because we didn't have a sales team, and I had to be the educator because we didn't have an education team. So I kind of became the one trick pony where I knock on a salon door, present the Sunglitz products to them, show them how it worked, be the educator, and then close the sale. So it kind of tested my skill set, and I got to learn a lot. I got a lot of rejection, a lot of doors slammed in my face, but it kind of taught me a lot, and that set me up for the later opportunities that came in my career. And as this US company started to grow in the US and grow in Europe, they invited me to go onto their artistic team, which was where in 2001, I got invited to the US for the first time. So at this stage, I was 27, and I came out to the US, and within 5 minutes, I was like, whoa, this is the place to be. I mean, it's definitely the land of opportunity. I'm very proud to be an American. I say I'm an American by choice. I love this country. It's given me so many opportunities. But when I first came here, I just loved the energy around the hairdressing industry. I went to a big hair show, and we didn't have anything like that in the UK. I mean, there was so much excitement, and I got to be on a platform. It was really cool. And the US company that was growing at the time said, have you ever thought about relocating to the US and coming to work for me as I grow my business in the US? And this was Farouk Systems, so it was in the early 2000s, and by that time Farouk Systems had the Sunglitz products, they had the BioSilk products, which I don't know if you're aware of.
Yeah, I
and
remember that.
then and then I just right place, right time. I decided I felt I was at that point in my life where I'd worked behind the chair in a salon for a long time. I was very successful, did well. I couldn't really grow any higher within that business, and it was either I go and open my own salon, or let's go and work in the US for a year and see how it works. So I decided to join Farouk Systems as an artistic director, and it was right at the time where the Chi Iron came out, and the company just exploded into growth in the early 2000s. And the company, like a lot of small companies that grow quickly, they don't have process, they don't have infrastructure, they don't have people. So very quickly, I was brought in as the art director, but I was writing education manuals, setting up, shows, events, product development. More, I mean, we learned. So my education there was great and terrific, and yeah, just in the right place, the right time. And during my time at Farouk, I started as artistic director. I was there for just over 10 years, where I got more involved in sales and marketing, and I became the vice president of sales and marketing for that company. So it was a
Can
pretty
let
good
me,
sized company.
I want to jump in.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so I want to go back. I got a couple questions to
sure.
kind of bring up to this. So first question is about what you were just talking about. So the process, you do your training, you do an apprenticeship,
Yep,
you work in a salon, you work your way through the salon, you grow in that salon, then you get on an artistic team, and then you're working in that space for a while. You get this opportunity to work with this other new product and brand, and that is what it sounds like is where a pivotal part of your professional life is occurring. First question, how long did you work with Farouk Systems?
yep.
Yeah, how long? And just in general.
Yeah, so I worked for Farouk Systems as a full-time employee, and that's when I moved out to the US to live and work in Houston. 10 years I was an employee of Farouk Systems until I joined Paul Mitchell. And I've been at Paul Mitchell now almost 13 years. But I did work with Farouk Systems as a UK distributor, and I was an educator for them. So I got kind of paid freelance. But I decided to make the big pivotal career decision to leave the UK, leave the salon, and go and work in a hair care manufacturer. I always said I never wanted to work in an office. And like here I am, I'm in an office. I have fun, and I still travel a lot, and I still do some hair. But it's ironic. I
So
left everything I knew to.
So I believe it or not, like I am I go and talk to students in schools a lot, and the rising stylists or the future professionals or the
Yeah,
all the different names that we have for the future of our industry. And
sure.
I've been recruiting and going to the schools since before I think, let's see, when was it, like 2010 is somewhere around 2010. I no, did I stop? Yeah, somewhere around 2010, I stopped going to visit the schools. And then I started going again in like 2017. So I skipped a whole, like, basically Instagram happening, basically.
Right.
And when I came back to go to the students, talk to the students, they want very different things. Like everyone's like,
Sure.
oh, it's the same generation, say the same thing about the previous generation. It's like, I'm just telling you my personal experiences. When I ask them what they want out of their career and out of their life, it's a very different answer than what they say now. And what they're saying now includes dynamic, like, career, multiple
Right.
revenue streams. They like the idea of working at a salon, but they also like the idea of working with a brand.
Yeah.
So I imagine that a lot of what you've done might sound pretty appealing. to a lot of the people that I talk to. And I think a lot of people I talk to like the idea of having some sort of um, working with a large established company and maybe having their own business and maybe working for somebody else. Like, I think that people are trying to evolve like their pursuit of
Yeah.
happiness. But anyway, so I just kind of put that out there. I think it's kind of cool what you've done. And I think it's really
Thank
cool that you look so young. I don't know. I'm not gonna ask you
you.
how old you are, but like that's a huge
I'm
bonus as
50.
well.
I'm 50. I just turned
No,
50 not
well,
long
happy
ago. So
birthday.
thank you. Thank you. So
You're
yeah,
welcome.
1990, I was 15. So yeah, it's
No, yeah, good point.
35 years later.
All right. Well, when's your birthday?
It was in August. Yeah.
August. Okay. Happy
So
birthday.
I think I saw you in what, September? So I was
Yeah.
fresh 50 then. Man.
Okay.
To get used to
Uh,
50 now.
well, it's nice to see a relatively young person at the top of one of our companies, and it's also really
Thank
nice
you.
to see someone who's very young get into the industry at a young age, get into the industry and kind of roll through so many emotions and is completely self-made. And I think this is like it's an awesome. This is super. I'm super excited to be having this conversation with you.
Ah,
Um,
thank you. Thank you.
okay.
And yeah, I mean, I'd like to say, I'm very blessed. The industry's been so good to me. It's given me great opportunities. And, I think I said this, Robert, at the event where we met. You know, I've seen a lot of talented hairdressers that I've worked with through the years that perhaps haven't gone on to have the career I've had. But it's not because they weren't talented enough. It's you got to have that drive, that courage, to take those opportunities. I missed a couple of opportunities earlier, believe it or not, in my career that I didn't do because out of fear. And I think that's the biggest thing that holds people back is fear of failure, fear of what if it doesn't work. If I can give anybody any advice, it's like, believe in yourself. It's like if I've done it, I mean, like anybody can do well in this industry if they have the passion, the hard work. There's no shortcuts. You're not going to get there unless you work harder than the person to the left and the right of you. It's all about hard work and practice and repetition and just improving your skill set.
What would on since we're talking about this, why on this note and in this same vein, I have my experience so far is it seems challenging for people to get like Diana Varvaro, the director of the Paul Mitchell School in New York City. I'm one of my favorites people, and she says all the time, you have to have 2 feet on the bus, and it. I think that that's pretty hard for like young the students that I speak to.
Right.
It's almost like they feel like they're sacrificing their own identity for somebody else, and but like, could you have had your experience if you didn't get 2 feet on the bus? I mean, it sounds like when you joined a team, you joined them. But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong or add context or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm following you. I mean, it's going back to like, there's no shortcuts to success. You got to work hard. I I was a very good hairdresser when I was behind the chair. I mean, I won competition. I was talented, but I wasn't the most talented. I mean, I worked with people, their hands were like so brilliant and amazing. As much as I practiced, I was just never there. But, I went on to do more things than them. And honestly, I just think it's like application and just, that attitude and just roll up your sleeves and just, if first you don't succeed, just try, and just, I really believe in hard work. I think it's super important. And I think, the people that have that quality, and that mindset, they're going to become successful eventually. And it's not an easy path, and you're going to get lots of doors slammed in your face, but it's how you react on the 100th door slammed in your face. You should be as enthusiastic on the next door as you were on the previous, ones. And that's hard, and it beats you down.
I
And,
I've
and
sorry, I don't know. I think I don't know if I'm being clear. I'm speaking about loyalty. like joining a company and being loyal and not being like
Yeah.
working on your own side gig on the side or
Oh,
trying to have
okay.
like trying to be part-time here, part-time
Yeah,
there.
I've always dedicated myself. I'm all in kind of guy. So 35 years, I've had three jobs.
Right.
From 15 to 27, working for the same salon behind the chair. I went as far as I thought I could go. It was a tough decision to leave. Um, then I went to Farouk Systems. I was there 10 years. Tough decision to leave, but that was to come here where I've been for 13 years. And this is the place where I want to be forever, hopefully, until they kick me out because I'm too old. Um, and I like that. That's I'm a loyal guy. I don't like change. I like to feel that like I'm part of something, and my teammates and I that's why I like working together with people. That's why I first got into the industry. So that's important to me. But yeah, I mean, I listen. Everybody's different. I would say, I've seen it a lot in my career in corporate America, especially I'd say the last 10, 15 years with a lot of younger people that I've hired. Um, they want it now. And it's okay. Yeah, it's great to want it now, but sometimes it takes time, it takes time. There's no divine right to get all of these things to happen right now. Um, if you think you can accomplish that, absolutely go for it. I'm just saying in my life experience, that's what I've seen work. I've seen a lot of people that don't want to put the time in to get to that next run on the ladder, and they'll jump to another job, and maybe they go three runs on the ladder. But the important part is each run on the ladder teaches you lessons and prepares you for that next step. And if you go from here to here, you're only going to disappoint the people who hire you here thinking that you have this kind of ability. But unfortunately, you might have lots of talent, but there's nothing that beats experience and wisdom, which comes with putting the time in and putting the effort in. And I've seen people who've been with me, been great, young, promising marketing people, super talented, but they can't wait. And I worked at Paul Mitchell and they get a much bigger title. It's a
Mhm.
smaller new company and maybe more money. But then the company's like, well, I thought I was getting somebody that was more experienced. You came from a big company, and they end up either getting fired or demoted, and then they'll call us and, hey, can I come back? It's a good lesson, but I think everybody's individual. But in my experience,
That
sure, you
was
can move. I moved pretty fast in my career, but I've never asked anybody for a promotion. I've never asked anybody for a raise. I wanted to be offered the promotion and offered the raise because I just performed at such a high level. I kind of made the decision easy for them.
nice. That's great. All right. Well, I appreciate your insight and your thoughts on that. I try to collect everybody's thoughts on this topic, and
Yeah.
that was so brilliantly said. Okay, so you kind of also set us up for the next piece is getting into John Paul Mitchell system, sorry.
Yeah.
And um tell us about like how did you get into this position? What was that
Sure.
like? What is your track like
Yeah.
your
So, yeah,
journey?
absolutely. So, this one thing about our industry, it's definitely it's a relationship business, right? It's a big industry, but certainly within the manufacturing and the distributors and the top salons in the country, kind of everybody knows each other. So your reputation's important. And at the time when I got the call about joining Paul Mitchell, it actually came from um, BSG, who's the largest professional hair care distributor in North America. The president of BSG was John Gollier at the time. This is back in 2012. And he and I had forged a good relationship. I was leading sales and marketing at Farouk, and BSG was our largest distributor. But the relationship we forged didn't come from having a terrifically good business together. It was actually, we had a lot of issues, a lot of problems. Um, Farouk flip-flopped a lot with who was doing his distribution. So it created a lot of tension between BSG and Farouk. But because of the relationship I maintained with John and how we worked through those issues together, it actually strengthened our relationship. And John called me in early 2012 and said, listen, Jason, I really enjoy working with you. I don't love who you're with, and I really think you should be with Paul Mitchell. They're a terrific company. They love hairdressers. I think it'd be a great place for you to land. And they are currently looking for somebody to take over their marketing who is relatively young and has good experience and understands the industry. And I think you'd be a terrific name to put forward. So he recommended me to Luke Jacob Ellis, who was president here for 30 years, and John Paul and Michaeline DeJoria. Michaeline is the current CEO, who's the daughter of John Paul DeJoria and my boss. So yeah, at the time, I'm a loyal guy. By then, I'd only had 2 jobs and 20 plus years into my career. And I talked to my wife. I'd actually only been married 1 week at the time. So a lot of change happened in my life at that time. So I'd just gotten married and told my wife that there was interest from Paul Mitchell. And I was pretty happy where I was at, but she said, Jason, this is Paul Mitchell. It's like, this is a special company. And she's not a hairdresser. But Paul Mitchell, when you talk to people about Paul Mitchell, even people who aren't in the industry, they just have a big smile on their face. The brand's such an iconic brand. It's so well liked and respected. She said, just talk to him. What have you got to lose? So I talked to Luke and Michaeline on the phone, and I ended up flying out to Los Angeles for an interview. Kind of felt really guilty, like I was cheating, because I was still employed by Farouk. But the minute I walked through the doors at Paul Mitchell, I just felt this like amazing energy. I'd of course known who the Paul Mitchell company was for many years and admired them and their success. And they have kind of like a cult-like following. We always say like Paul Mitchell's the biggest kept secret. Everyone that's in knows, but the people who are not like kind of look back and like, well, that's kind of cool, but I don't get it. So anyway, I walked through the doors here at Paul Mitchell, and just the energy that greeted me, it was incredible. They offered me the job on the spot. I lived in Houston, Texas at the time, and I said, let me talk to my wife. I flew back, and my wife said, go for it. You haven't stopped smiling. Let's do this. I think it's going to be a great move for you. So thank God, and good advice from my wife. And I joined the company in 2012 as the vice president of marketing. And again, back then, I have no marketing degree. This is like the biggest privately held beauty brand in the world. And John Paul wants to put a hairdresser in charge of marketing. So, says a lot about how much he thinks about hairdressers. Most companies won't do that. So anyway, I come in 2012, and I went from Farouk Systems that was a good company and had grown well and also was very professional focused, to this company that had all these resources. I mean, Paul Mitchell was more established. The marketing department was like 3 times bigger here than where I'd come from. So I had all these resources and so many smart people around me. I was like, are you sure you want me in charge of all this? But anyway, it went very well. And, needless to say, within 2 years, they saw that I had abilities beyond marketing, and they gave me the sales responsibility, so sales and marketing. And then because I'm a hairdresser, I got education. And then the president, Luke Jacob Ellis, who's a great mentor to me, I got to work with him for 9 years, told me about 8 years ago, like, you're going to be my replacement. I'm going to start really grooming you now. You're very good in sales, marketing, education. I'm going to start teaching you some other areas of the business because I think you're going to be a terrific president, which such a great, nice vote of confidence. And I
Totally.
loved it because for like those 3 or 4 years after, he really kind of honed skills that I didn't have before. I didn't even realize I had. He woke parts of my brain up that I didn't realize even existed. And yeah, so I took over as president in 2021. So what's that? 4 years almost. So 4 years I've had the pleasure and privilege of being the president for this terrific company. And I get to work really closely with our schools as well. We have 115 schools. We graduate over 10,000 future professionals, and we're super invested in the industry because, as iconic as the brand is and as well known with consumers as it is, we absolutely need hairdressers because hairdressers are the lifeblood of the company. It's where our innovation comes from, and it's where our credibility with the consumer comes from. Even though the industry's been a little challenged in recent times, and it's certainly been hard for them with take home, I still think that salons are super important to the lifeblood of any professional beauty company.
Nice. Awesome. So, what would you, my thought is, just considering this has been an incredible opportunity to hear your story, and
Sure.
I've loved it so far. And because we're coming up on our time, I think it's a good place to do some kind of like wrap up stuff here. So we got your story, how you got to where you are. First question, what do you attribute to your success? Let's say the top 3 to 4 things. I'm sure there's plenty, but maybe you only have one. I don't know, but that's
Yeah,
one
yeah. I
question.
mean, I think I've talked a lot about just working hard,
Yep.
being humble. I think it's super important to be humble and realize that you can be good at some things, but you're not going to be good at everything. And to be constantly open to learning from people around you. And I think I said this at the event as well. During my career, I've often learned things from people who have less experience than me, new people to the industry, because they have a fresh approach and they're not preconditioned. So I would say being humble, being open, working hard. Those are three huge huge ones. As far as success, not taking credit for things. I think even if perhaps you were a main driver on something, celebrate as a team. And then if there's something going wrong, and there's an area of weakness, do that in private. Celebrate successes together as a team. Build the people around you. Don't build yourself. Let the team do that. I think kind of comes back to being humble.
Nice. Awesome. And do you, what do you do do you have any like practices for time management or burnout, like handling that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, naturally I was kind of a workaholic. I'm a very competitive person. It's just the way I am in anything I do. I want to do it well and be the best. And so I'd often kind of work too hard, and I didn't have a good work-life balance. One of the biggest blessings I got from John Paul Mitchell Systems is they're really big on work-life balance, and we say often that our most precious resource as a company is not our products, it's our people. And having a healthy workforce that has a good work-life balance is super important. So I also try and practice that myself. It took me a while. It took me a couple of years to get into the Paul Mitchell way of doing things, which is, don't work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's okay, work 8 hours, go home, spend time taking care of you, spend time with your wife, spend time with your family. They're really big on that. And it took a while for me to kind of unplug from my crazy, way of working. But that's something that I'd attribute to productivity and longevity because eventually you can burn out and you become less effective if you just tired because you just work too much. So I have to have that healthy balance. I've really, as I've gotten older, started to try and take better care of myself, physically, mentally, take time to kind of relax, working out, eating better, all the things I didn't do when I was in the salon. I was so busy in the salon, I barely eat. I just drink coffee all day long. So those are things I think that are important. And I wish I'd have done some of those things earlier in my life.
Totally. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We did at the beginning of the episode, we did say that we would talk about the state of the industry. I
Sure.
don't know. Um, we do have, 7 minutes or so. So
Okay.
why don't we do that?
Touch
Why
on
don't
that.
we end this conversation with whatever you can provide for us in
Sure.
that amount of time, the current state of the industry, whatever that means
Sure.
to you.
Sure. Sure. Well, I mean, if we look at the data, I think it's, and if we look at the reality, I think salons, like many businesses, are finding it challenging right now. Frequency of visit, I would say, is down. Average client spend is down. Um, However, when you compare the beauty industry and the salon industry to other industries, we're faring better than most. So I think there's a silver lining. I also think we've got to remember it's our profession is something that just can't be replicated anywhere. Um, the relationship you have with your guests is a special one, and I think you have the ability to draw those guests back as long as you give a good level of service. So I do think there's a silver lining. Inflation has been very high. Credit card debt's at an all-time high. And we always said for so many, the beauty industry is recession proof. I changed my mind on that. It's not recession proof, but it's recession resilient. So that's kind of getting raw and getting real. But I do see, I mean, the industry, the next 5 years is predicted to grow. It's not a huge growth. The CAGR is like 4%. So the compounding annual growth rate is about 4%, which isn't huge, but it's growing. So I think hairdressers and successful salon owners are going to navigate through it. Um, it's like anything when there's a shakeup. The businesses that aren't run that well, yeah, some of those might close. They might. But I think that's very cyclical in lots of industries and lots of businesses. There's always that time where business is easier and then the time when business gets hard. And I think the time when business gets hard, it forces you to innovate and reinvent yourself. And I think even if I look at John Paul Mitchell Systems business, through COVID and all those pressures that we faced, we're a stronger, better business now than we were before. And I honestly think that's the same thing of our industry. I think it's the same thing of salons and stylists and beauty schools. A lot of beauty schools have really felt the pinch recently. There's been a lot of regulations on for-profit schools, and it's been tough. But I do feel good about I think we're on the backside of it now, and I feel like the future's definitely bright. And I think what's important, if I could say anything to your audience, is it matters who you partner with. You want to partner with, a distributor, a manufacturer that is focused on you, that is focused on your success. And I think if you can find that kind of a partnership, it's going to help you, as opposed to focusing on somebody that's got many other lines of revenue where they're not really looking at the hairdressing channel as their main source of business. So yeah, at John Paul Mitchell Systems, I think I started with it. Stylists and hairdressers and salons are important to us, and we want to continue to innovate to help hairdressers be successful behind the chair, because we know if they're successful, we're successful. And I think I'm testament to that, being put in the role that I am to run this company. And it's not just me. We have many hairdressers in our executive team and throughout our organization, as well as all our talented future professionals, artists, artistic directors, and we're all got one mission, and that's to give back to the industry that's given us so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that's a great place to sign off. I want
Yeah,
to thank
thanks,
you again
Robert.
for your time, and this has been great.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I like everything you're doing, and yeah, I like the hairdresser strong. I think we are strong. Yeah, I think it's been a challenging few years, but hairdressers aren't going anywhere. People are always going to need us, and
That's
that's a
right. We
great
made it
feeling.
through the pandemic.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
thanks, Robert. Happy New
Thank
Year
you
to you.
so much, and I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much.